All right, crazy hair. Whoa. What's up, everyone? Look at my insane hair. It's wonderful. What's up, Owl, Guru, Augie, Simon, Samurai Pizza Cats? There we go. Wait, what are we doing? There we go. Welcome, everybody. Simulation Talk 188. We are here on YouTube and X and Twitch and TikTok all at once. Omnipresent across these platforms. Carmine, how are you doing? Cosmic, I guess Mike Mycelium, Michael, yo. Carter, how are you, my brother? So good to see you here. Exciting things coming up. Gonna be meeting up with some fun people. Oh, that's what I was missing. I'm missing a light. I gotta get one. I still didn't get one. Everything looks so terrible. Boydonic is saying, send me an email about viewing the fourth dimension. Awesome. Yeah, these emails, I'm getting around to them. I'm glad to hear that, Carter. To anybody who doesn't know, Carter is my, he's my partner in Kodo Reality. So we're working on some really, really exciting things. What's up, Arwaf? We are doing wonderful, Guru. How are you doing today? Aaron is in the house. Travis, John, Bob, Christy. How are you guys? If you follow, it doesn't matter where you are. If you want to give the chat some likes, the algorithms love that. Therefore, I would enjoy that. So feel free to do so. If you're on TikTok or if you are on YouTube or X or Twitch, doesn't matter. Smash that like button. Indeed. All the platforms, by the way, are Danny Goller on TikTok and Instagram, Goller Danny on X, LaserX83 on Twitch. Highly recommend you guys join Twitch just so we can help the channel. LaserX83, we're barely present there. LaserX83 on Twitch and Dango Thoughts on YouTube, of course. But most people are following from YouTube, so we're good there. What's up, Ray? Cam, Eddie Santo, Kathy Cobb, Christina. Okay. I think we have good enough of a show up now. What should we discuss today? Also, Boydonic, you can also give me some details here, by the way, if we're already here, unless it's like super complex about what seeing the fourth dimension. I will be totally honest with the viewers. I've voiced this before on the channel, but considering the fact that I'm putting a pretty crazy claim on the table, I know it might sound absurd to some, but I am taking a very mainstream line in terms of evidence and what constitutes knowledge. In other words, there's theories as many as there are people. I'm interested in the things that can be applicable, in the things that we can potentially prove, show, repeat. Things like if I tie I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but I did get these emails before where if I tie my eyes in a particular strength and it's black enough and then I smoke and then I do this thing and this being that always comes back, it's the same being. There's nothing I can do about that. It's not an actionable thing. It might be real, but it's not a thing that we can actually do something with. I'm interested in the thing that we can kind of, share with the scientific community, try and substantiate something. So I'm always open to hear it, but for the most part, it's very difficult to make progress, and it's very difficult to make a real, push forward. Conversations with ChatGPT, also something that I'm not that interested in, because ChatGPT, we don't exactly know what's going on there. It's an incredible tool that I love, but these things do not constitute proofs. I see sometimes people, posting things like, this guy spoke with ChatGPT and it proved nothing. He spoke with ChatGPT. Chris just gifted 5 memberships on YouTube. Chris, you're such a blessing, brother. Same goes for Ebony and for Devin, who are also in the habit of doing so once in a while. If you happen to be on a different platform, you should definitely listen up, at least also on YouTube, Dango Thoughts, just because once in a while you get a membership. The memberships you can join yourself. They're actually not that expensive, but they include Zoom calls with me. They include weekly lives aside from the daily lives that are for members only. They include early access to all my content and private things from my personal life that will exist only on YouTube members. So I highly recommend to check that. Ebony just gifted more people. Casey, thank you so much for the gift. Ebony, how are you? And also coming in strong with the 5 memberships gifted. Just so you guys know, Chris and Ebony and actually many others at this point are also our mods on they're the moderators on our Discord channel, which you should definitely join. Our Discord channel is listed on my YouTube channel, Dango Thoughts. You can find the it's I think the third from the top on my YouTube channel, the social media thing. So I highly recommend you join it. And if you want to know more about the project, I forgot to put it yesterday, but it is codeofreality.com. There you go. That is the website in which we do most things. See, Casey's coming on. How you doing, brother? Oh, wait, let me turn you up. How are you, man?
I'm doing great.
I'm glad
to. It's cool with you. I was going to comment on the theories of everything little blurb that came up yesterday or the day before, the one that mentioned the laser experiment.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Remind me, please. My memory is very short.
The guy that does the TOE podcast.
Yeah. Andres, yes.
Yeah, and they brought up the laser simulation.
Mm-hmm.
You saw that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I saw the conversation when it came out. Yeah. I spoke about it.
Once again, someone is referencing the cymatics from sound and like the Mandela type effect, which is completely different than what the code is showing up as. And I thought it was interesting what he was saying about the about the brain and how it focuses things. That's definitely interesting, but it's still yet not what's being talked about as far as the same symbolic thing that's going on. I don't know why everybody misses that, but
because they haven't seen it. I get it. I spoke about this 2 lives ago or the live before, but I get it because again, I have nothing but great things to say about Andres. Just to be clear, he's incredible. He's a very, very, very pleasant guy. Super smart. I'm really happy he's doing the work that he's doing. And I really love the way he's going about it too. He's very secular in his attitude. Huh? Oh, what? Oh, all right. Well, this is so yeah, super secular in his approach, and I am too. What that means is that you don't know anything until you truly encounter it, right? So you can be secular and still believe in God if you've encountered God, right? So secular just means to me somebody who holds his horses back. I don't know how the metaphor runs, but it runs until they know for sure, right? And that it takes quite a while to know something for sure. And I love that he does that. And I love the fact that he offers restrictions. So he offers certain parameters under which the theory has to operate, especially when talking about something as esoteric as consciousness. I love these things. And he's a brilliant mathematician. And I saw this talk when it came out, basically. Nico shared it with me, actually. I watched it before it came out on YouTube. Great conversation. Highly recommend it. Toe Podcast, Andres Gomez. Wonderful conversation. And you will get a really good glimpse of what a conversation of this flavor needs to look like. By the way, recently Andres Gomez. He had one of my favorite thinkers on his podcast as well, Joshua Bach. Also incredible conversation. And I love the way that Joshua kind of pushed a little bit against some of the points that he was making. So all of this is just to say that I absolutely love what Andres is doing, and we are in conversation. We're again, I always say, like, we're not really interacting on a regular basis, so I can't say he's my good friend, but we know each other well. I met him. We spoke about this. He tried the experiment. I don't know if he would ever say this publicly, because I don't know if it kind of messes up some things. But as far as I know, he tried. He couldn't see the code, and because of that, I don't blame him. It's kind of like, but I obviously voiced it to him. I told him, like, look, the surface stuff that you're talking about, that is not what we're talking about at all, and the confusion is honest, but it needs to be modified, because it's simply not. We're not talking about the surface. What you're talking about is like kind of like the somatic patterns that kind of like on the surface, the mandalas, the kind of people see in the beginning. This is just an augmentation of your visual field with the molecule, for sure. And then he theorizes a lot of things around it in the podcast, in which by the way is an interesting theory, where he thinks that that's a modulation of liquid crystals inside of your both in terms of how your consciousness operates and your retina. Very interesting and concrete proposition, which can be tested. But it is not what is being proposed. Just like Casey just said, it is not what is being proposed. It is not what we're talking about. It is not on the surface. It is not this kind of like, do I see it, do I not kind of thing. It is literally as real as a physical object, and it exists in a z-axis inside. It's not even on the surface, and it's very complex. It's not just code. I'm seeing this recently a lot, and I'm kind of, honestly, I'm a little kind of blown away by people's rigidity with the claim. Like, they, you say code, and they say, well, somebody said, they said, I saw the phenomena. I can't say that it's just they said the code was the least interesting things. What was interesting is that there was a cavity, and then there was like these structures. Yes, we were saying all of that. So like, yes, we're just saying code because it's easy to say, but there's so much there, which is what I keep repeating. There's so much complexity there. There's so much information. It's a whole tapestry. It's a whole world. It's an entire new gestalt that you've never seen before. And it's exactly like looking at a new world through a microscope that you've never seen before. So to say, hey, I've seen all these extra things. Yeah, we've just been saying this the whole time. That drives me a little crazy when people do that. It's like, what you thought it's just going to be like, just what you thought, what you saw in the Matrix. Like, what, you know what I mean? It's so funny.
Yeah, and the fact that it repeats the same every time.
Yeah, it's there. It's huge.
Am I creating a hiss for you on your end?
A little bit, but I also have a background noise, so I can't really hear that much.
It's okay, as long as it's good. Yeah, and so like with the other experiment I was doing based on the lasers, is this same thing. It's a depth thing. It is the same thing every time, and it is intricate symbols that's going on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they're kind of missing the point, or not. But what I think could be happening is that the molecule is enabling us to see a previously unknown layer of reality that is between our perception and what we call reality. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Something like that, because just like the code, it being the same thing every time, and nothing really can explain the codes themselves. Like, I hear what you're saying with GPT. GPT just doesn't understand what it means to have something that defined and regular every time, like the code in a laser. Yeah. The same answer will come back. Like, oh, it's GPT. It's like, no, it's not. Yeah.
GPT only knows what we know collectively, which is a lot, but that's it. If this is a completely new phenomenon, GPT will have nothing to say about it. It simply does not have that information.
The other thing too is, I'm wondering how much. It's not really. I don't think it really means much, but I think it does have a little bit. When people externally hallucinate on the molecule, I think that could be a distraction for them understanding or seeing the code, because they're being dazzled by the light show or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And perhaps, this is a big maybe, perhaps until somebody has done it enough times that aren't experiencing all the outward bells and whistles, that they can actually like focus, like Zoltan or you, or people that can walk around and function normally on the molecule.
Yeah.
And then have their intellectual and all their faculties available to study something like that, it may be a little bit more difficult for them to understand it, even if they are super high-minded in what they're doing, you know?
Yeah, no, again, the reason that I don't blame Andres is because he hasn't seen it. I'm pretty sure that if he's going to see it, he's going to go, oh, okay. There's no way he won't. There's just no way. There's just no way. If you see it for what it is, there's simply no way that you can go, oh, yeah, that was expected. There's no way. There's simply no way in the world that this is going to happen. And I have absolute confidence in that. So, like, this is how much confidence I have in this. Here's a person who, very good faith. So, like, he would, like, obviously adopt whatever it is true. I know that. But someone who's a Zena, hey. But someone at the moment, Cosmo, relax. But someone at the moment who is not convinced, right? So when people are not convinced, they're already kind of, it's inevitable. They kind of start building a maybe not attitude towards it, right? And then it has momentum. So the longer that's going to go on, the thicker the layer of their maybe not is. And then if they do discover that it is, it's actually harder for them to kind of go, oh, like, because there's a momentum to their conviction, right? I am so confident that it is so realistic that I'm saying that even the person who, if they're still good faith, if they see it, no matter how much thickness their maybe notness acquired, there is no way they can say, oh, they can not say, oh my God, I was wrong. There's just no way. Because the only thing that to some degree, what's the right word? It doesn't bother me, but to some degree, it kind of makes me feel a little, I don't know what the right word is, but it just feels off, is that there's this conviction that people can be so confused by certain phenomenologies that they would be completely bamboozled and believe it's something else. And it is true that it does happen. But when so many people insist and they go, yo, no, this is like different. Like it is different. We can recognize that this is different. The fact that somebody, like I always say, like the fact that somebody can think that people can confuse the speckle with something that spectacular and robust, that's it. The only word I can think of that is absurd. It's absurd. It's like what you see in the laser. Let me make it perfectly clear to everybody who didn't see it. You see some kind of an extra layer of existence that is just there. Just imagine like you're looking through a microscope. Imagine being the first person to look through a microscope. You see this world of microbes and tiny organisms moving around. And even though you've never seen them before, it is beyond a shadow of your doubt. You know for sure that this is some kind of a real thing that is happening, and you're just like looking at it, right? And it's just like a whole new world that operates on its own in its own kind of way, and the microscopic world. It is like that on steroids, because that world is not only like coherent and it's like in there, and it's just there for what it is. You look away, you look back, it's the same thing. And like it's just like a regular object operating in it, and it's not on the surface, it's the whole thing. Imagine if there would be like a here all of a sudden there's another space somehow in the middle, and it's like all of a sudden becomes you become aware of it, and it's there in such a coherent manner that you can't shake it off, you can't remove it, you can't. That's why you see all these people in the trailer react to it in a way that you don't see a lot or ever, because people, you don't see real awe on people's faces very often. That's not a very common emotion. True awe is very rare. What you people seeing in the trailer of the Discovery, and if you haven't seen it, you should definitely see it. It's on Dango Thoughts on the YouTube channel, and the thumbnail is just Aaron's eye with a laser in it. Great thumbnail, great, incredible trailer. But what you see in the trailer, people's reactions, is because they can't believe what they're seeing, and that kind of a thing cannot happen just by people seeing some kind of a hallucination. And even though the molecule is amazing and crazy, it does not invoke this kind of a what in the world am I seeing right now kind of feeling. It just doesn't, even though it's so amazing and insane. So all these postulations about, well, it's going to change with a different frequency, it's going to change with a different surface, all of it is incorrect. It does not change with the frequency, it does not change with the surface, and it does not change no matter who you are, where you are, what is happening. It's always the same thing. I mean, it at this point is just, again, we're kind of going in circles, but like, it's just not. We're not confused. We are not confused. It is there. But that's all I can say on that. And I don't blame anybody who didn't see it, relying on as many data points from people that did see it. But that's the only thing they can go by. But I assure anybody who didn't see it and is skeptical, we are not confused about it. Okay. What's up, Sofa King? I see I'm showing me the internet is pretty bad. See, there's a lot of discussions about DNA. Dog drama. Yeah, Van Dwellers, I take your point. Aaron, how are you, brother? I take your point, Van Dweller. I think a lot of people want to talk about and discuss the code, but are hesitant or scared to look for themselves because it involves taking a power psychedelic couple battles going on here. Yes, I agree with that. My aim is not actually to convince as many people as possible to see it. To be clear, this is not for everybody, and I do not recommend it for everybody. I am simply talking about the people who are extremely smart and scientists who study in consciousness and interested in engaging with this. It is not enough for them to go and just kind of like try it once, kind of not see it, and then kind of rely on what other people are saying. It is not enough, because at this point, the sample of the people that are serious people that have seen it, talked about it, is substantial. We do have this fact that some people are having a hard time with it in the beginning, sometimes working against us, because you should be able to explain why is it that some people see it and sometimes don't. It is not an effect. It is there. And it's only a matter of time before we substantiate this. And yeah, I mean, the truth is that it's on me or on us to come up with a theoretical framework that is coherent, that tracks with what we already know about the world, and connects to also some kind of a new frame of seeing the world that can explain more than what we currently can explain. If we can deliver that, that will open new windows. But before then, I feel like it's just going to be kind of a lot of that happening. Internet is great on TikTok. Awesome. Yeah, I'm talking about YouTube. How does this code fit into a quantum field? I mean, it might as well be one of the quantum fields, if not a combination of all of them. Documentary, end of the year. Dawn, thank you so much for the gift. I appreciate you. I missed a lot of comments. Okay, I'm gonna have to skip some of those. What's up, Jessica? Do you think this code can be modified with other tech to open a physical portal, like literally wormholes? Don't know, but I think it can be manipulated with some physical effect. We just don't know what it is yet, which is something that we're trying to figure out. Does not be within my range. If you mix the blue, okay, these I don't really know much about. The code is the same on mushrooms, yes. How are you, Devin? Good to see you. Yeah, and again, we need to substantiate if we're truly talking about something novel and new. That is true. But at a certain point, it's also good faith has to be involved. Like you can't have just people trying to kind of explain it away. They won't. It's there. But the insistence of going otherwise, again, when you pushing against current ontology, it makes people uncomfortable. I understand that. What is the threshold of mushrooms? I would say you need at least like a good dose. You need like 3 grams, something like that. No, not just with red laser. It would work with any frequency. It's just that the red laser is easier to spend some time with because it's a lower frequency. So far, we tried Aya, mushrooms, and the spirit molecule, and it worked. Didn't try it with L, didn't try it with M, didn't try it with K. Deep meditation did not seem to yield any results, but it doesn't mean that it can't. I don't think like snag the the document. I mean, it might require knowledge that signal to the universe that we understand certain things. I don't see a reason why the technique should be really simple. Even knowing how to build it is a very complex thing. Civilization kind of. Oh, there you go. Yeah, YouTube is slacking on it. Salvia, no, and I would not recommend. I am not a big fan of salvia. It doesn't really matter. So, like when you see the code, the whatever that is, we should start calling it something else so people can understand it. It's not, we're not just talking about digits. We're talking about like a very robust structure. Let's call it the structure. When you see the structure, you immediately understand that it's there. It doesn't have this kind of property that you might postulate. Well, if I use something else, will I see something else? It doesn't have that kind of quality. It's clear to you that as long as you're in the right state, you will just see it. It's like putting 3D glasses on. So I would say that using different substances is important to substantiate some things, but I don't think it's key to understand anything. I am not trying to decipher the code. I know it surprises a lot of people, but I don't think that's the aim of it at all. Or if you want to aim there, you first need to understand the context of what the code is, what it's doing, what is it exactly, how you can potentially perturb it. And then maybe the different digits will start making sense. Again, I'm going to kind of recapitulate this idea to illustrate, but if I show you the English alphabet from A to Z and tell you nothing else, will you ever know English? No, you will never know English. So writing down all the characters, all that stuff, that makes zero difference, and especially because we are operating within a very flimsy frame where all of the things that we kind of trying to mimic are approximations at best, confabulations at worst, because that will actually take you further afield. So if you really want to decode it, you first will need to understand the context of what it is and what it's doing. You will need to create perturbations to it and see how it responds to different things. And if you can, you should study these first for a while. And then you can maybe record directly from your cortex through some Neuralink device or something else. And if you can have exact representation of its behavior and content, then you stand a chance to potentially decode it. Until then, all of these attempts, I say, they're a complete waste of time. people will still try, and I would love to be proven wrong, but certain things, they're just obvious, and that's one of these obvious things, which is that you can't decode something that you have no example of whatsoever. Even when decoding ancient languages, there's a lot of context that you have. First of all, you know it's a human language, and we know quite a bit about how human language evolves in general. That alone is an enormous hint of how it can potentially be arranged. There's not infinite ways in which it can be arranged. It can either be one side or the other side, or up and down, or maybe a combination of the two. It can't be a letter here, then a letter there, then a letter there. Nobody writes like that. So that's already something that you know about a language if it is a human language. You also know adjacent cultures and how certain things were happening. There's a lot of context going on just because it's a human language and we are humans. If you have an alien coding system that is running at the core of reality itself, you need to collect a lot of data to first have a framework for it. This is why at the moment, it's very far from my interest to try and decode the language. Again, if somebody all of a sudden manages to do it, I'll be the first one to congratulate them and to say, oh my God, I'm so happy I was wrong. That's incredible. It is simply not likely, according to what I understand about, possibilities in this space. I didn't say I will never understand it, but we need to understand what it is. So if the code is coding for something fundamental in reality, you want to understand how it relates to everything else that you understand in reality. That's a much more, I think, actionable and important attempt in the investigation. So I had one thought that I'll share with you guys before I bounce off for today. That is in its infancy, so I might be messing it up, but this is the first time I'm literally voicing it. So you heard it here first, folks. I don't even know to what extent this thought outlines something that might come across as interesting, but to me it was interesting. And the thought was, so I was watching today the interview with Jacques Vallée on Joe Rogan, and really interesting conversation. Highly recommend you guys watch it. But all of a sudden, a thought that I already had before came back into my attention, which is, you know how they were talking about how the UAPs or UFOs or whatever you want to call them, they were appearing throughout the ages, and the thought is around the fact that people say, well, we've been comparing these over ages, and if you look at some of the older art, you might find some of these objects there. And look at that, we see the same orbs appearing in the sky when we're seeing the drones in Jersey, let's say. Okay, so the thought was, look at our technology in the last 100 years, right? So if you look at the technology from 2,000 years ago to 1,000 years ago, the difference was minuscule, barely noticeable, right? And then as time goes by, the rate of change of technology, it ramps up dramatically, right? Exponentially. And when it got to our last century and our current century, the growth is like you can't recognize the world almost from maybe 20 years ago in terms of how we do things, right? Maybe physically it looks, to some degree, we still have buildings, we still have cars, right? But in terms of how we do things, because of the technology that we now have, phones and all that stuff, it's almost unrecognizable to us. The idea that, like, for example, the idea that you can, you just leave the house, and maybe 30 years ago, but still, like, it used to be that you leave the house and that's it. Like, I can't get a hold of you until I call and you pick up, right? That idea is completely foreign to us at this point, right? But that's like a tiny thing. The amount of information we can now receive on a regular basis, the amount of information you can interact with in 5 minutes with Google and ChatGPT are just like inconceivable to somebody even 10 years ago, right? So now notice that is always a trend, right? And the more advanced you become, it seems that the more rate of change you have in your technologies, moment to moment. So, how can it be that if a civilization is that advanced, that their vehicles will look the same from 2,000 years ago? Why should that be the case? Why would it even be the same from 100 years ago? Like, if people saw UFOs 100 years ago, why would it be the same thing today? Do they not evolve? Right? Wouldn't you expect their technology to also have this trend and be way, way, way faster than ours? So the thought that I had today was, what are the logical implications of this fact? So there's, as far as I can tell, there's really two main options. One, they are not aliens, and they are not what we think they are. And they are somehow, for lack of a better term, a figment of our imagination, but they're a figment of our collective imagination. And because the human mind didn't really change that much over this time, they kind of look the same because we have the same kind of collective figment of our imagination. That's one option. Now, there's a lot of perturbation to this option. In other words, there's a lot of elements there that you can play with in terms of like, well, what does it mean? The mind is part of reality. Is reality the mind? And then all of that, idealistic stuff. Donald Hoffman's work. You can fold a lot into this kind of frame, and it would yield different results, but it would be under the same option that I just described, which is somehow it is a product of our mind, our current understanding. And because our mind is not really that much more advanced in this period of time, the kind of manifestations that it allows for is not that different. That's one option. The other option, which I never thought about before, is that it's possible that maybe the growth of this ramping up of technology actually kind of tapers off. So it's not really asymptotic towards infinity, or like you can say it asymptotes, and then there's a level that when civilizations reach that level of development, it kind of becomes more of a flat, like it stops exponentially growing, and it doesn't really change that much because beyond that point, there's not much development that can really happen because beings kind of understand everything there is to know, and then they kind of like taper, like they're the boundary of what's possible, but not much more possible beyond that point. That's also a possibility, which I honestly never thought about before because it doesn't make any sense to me. But here's the real thought that I had today, which I found kind of interesting. If that is the case, then there must be a bound, must be a limit to how much progress can actually be made. But what that would mean is that there's no more novelty from that point. It basically means that from that point on, things just kind of become boring because everything was done. Like literally you did it all. Like that's it. There's no more, there's truly, you reached a level where there's no more development from that point. Now, this scenario actually doesn't make any sense to me. I do think that evolution is basically of everything that is possible. Form is basically infinite. But that would make sense of why they would look the same across all times. Now, you can also, there's another third possibility where they are time travelers, or like they kind of crack time. So then when you're outside of time, there's no really evolution of things. You just have things that do certain things, and they would appear the same across time because they appear in different points in time. And that's also a possibility, actually. But even there, you would think that within the infinite space of a realm that is outside of time, you would still have some. You would have an infinite possibility of things to appear, right? It's kind of like the ultimate space where God would be residing. Then why would you see the same things? Like it's still, there's something there that doesn't quite make sense to me. But that was my really, it was really interesting to me to think that if there is a boundedness to how far things can evolve, then actually it does make sense that at a certain point a real question would arise. which is that all the things that kind of reach the limit of what's possible, they're kind of like, okay, well, what's the point then? And then the only point becomes to try and understand how did everything come to be. That's the only thing that nobody can answer, because no matter how far you go, it seems to be outside of your ability to inspect, because in order to know how it all came to be, you have to be outside of everything that exists, and that's obviously by definition impossible. So it's like you're stuck in this weird, conundrum of like, how are you going to go about it? Well, you're going to put all your technological sophistication of reality itself to try and understand the ultimate reason for everything being, because that's the only new novel thing that still nobody knows. So that would actually make it a perfect bullseye of a goal for anything that reaches beyond a certain level of development. It would be the only thing that beings of that level would be interested in, and why they would run all these infinite simulations. Now, this thought I already voiced before, but it does make sense to me on a whole new level if that is the logic of what's going on. And the other option is, I guess, the enlightened option, which is just to drop the question altogether, to just allow things to be and not worry about why everything exists, because it will drive you mad, because there's no way you can achieve it. And if you're going to try, you're just going to drive yourself and everything else insane. And I do think that this is exactly the two modalities that reality is playing, which again, I know I spoke about it before, but it's interesting that I kind of arrived at it from a completely different trajectory of thought, because there's really like this question of like, why do these vehicles don't change? Why are they always the same across thousands of years? Why would it be the case? Yeah, so that was the thought basically. Oh, Jay wants to join up. Jay, I'll let you up, but I'll let you know right away. I'm going to be jumping off in less than 5 minutes just because I have dinner ready. But go ahead. I'll bring you in for a few moments.
No worries, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, brother.
I'm kind of new to your lives. I think I've been in one a long time ago, so I'm not sure exactly what you touch on, but I kind of checked out your page and was listening to you there. And I had a quick story. It's maybe like a minute and a half.
Sure.
But I've had a memory my entire life of picking my parents previous to being born.
Mm-hmm.
So in heaven, or whatever you'd want to call it, whatever name you want to, like the other side. And I have a memory where I'm in a waiting room. This is where the memory starts. I'm in a waiting room. I don't have a physical body, but I have like a point of view I'm looking through. And I felt very much like me. And I was there ready to see somebody to pick my next life, basically. And I was thinking about how long it had been since I had last come back to Earth, that the 90s seemed like a really safe time to be born, to live in. But one of the most profound things for me personally was that I remember thinking of why I was coming. One of the things I was most excited about for coming back to Earth. And it was to experience the highs, even if that meant experiencing the lows. Because in heaven, or whatever you want to call it, it was like eternal bliss. Like, like the best, most euphoric feeling you could imagine. It felt like that, but it feels like that 24/7. And I felt like as though I had been there for probably, some people had lived multiple lifetimes and I hadn't even come back. I had been up there for a while. And I was ready to just experience something. I don't want to say I was bored, but almost. It had been so long since I had chosen to come back to Earth. And so I went into a room, basically. This is the end of the story. I go into a room. I'm told that this guy is ready to see me. And I go into this room, and I'm really nutshelling the story here. These 3 pillars of smoke rise up out of the ground in front of me. And they start projecting basically like a hologram of 3 different couples, one on each pillar. And they're embracing each other. They're hugging, they're kissing, they're laughing in these little like 2 or 3 second video clips. And then I have this deep wise voice. It wasn't God, but like, you know, somebody higher up. And he proceeds to tell me these are three couples who are about to conceive a baby, and that I get the choice of which one I want, and I can ask him any question I want, any single one in the world, but only about the past and the present. And he was very specific that he could not answer questions about the future. And I went on and on and on, and eventually I picked who's my parents, and it felt like God flicked me in the back, and I got slingshotted into this pillar where the hologram was coming from, and everything went white, and that's the end of the memory. But I've had that my whole life, and I just like to share it with open-minded people like yourself who kind of know a thing or two about a thing or two. And
that's beautiful.
It's no big picture, but if you're wondering what's on the other side of the wall, if I can even poke like a pinhole on that for you.
One of the things.
know?
Yeah, I've been shown quite a bit from the other side, to be quite honest. I don't know. So first of all, everything you said makes perfect sense to me. And I would even say, I would go as far as to say that I'm pretty sure that everything you said is exactly right. I guess my only thing is that from the perspective of the ultimate picture, what would make sense is that because reality has to be balanced, right? And there's a reason why the yin yang is such a powerful symbol. Just like you have the place where it's infinite bliss, you will absolutely have the other side of it. And some got lucky to have the trajectory to end up on the light side.
Right.
Some didn't get so lucky. So now the question is this really fair? And I think that is the question that is actually being asked seriously now from the highest of places. And what is in fact going on is the attempt to reconsolidate the picture in such a way that it would be equitable and fair. And the only way to achieve that within a frame of reality that cannot have more or less of what it already is, in other words, it is set in the amount of light and darkness that it has in it, is to distribute evenly all of it, which is nirvana. Okay. So the difference between that and the picture you just described, which makes perfect sense to me, is that it might be the current state of affairs, but the higher ups of the higher ups are trying to change it because it's not fair. And
like people going to hell, basically, you're saying?
Yeah. Because it's no one's fault, the exact trajectory. Now, it's true that we're talking about like free will, all that stuff, but if you think about it for 2 seconds, that is an incoherent picture of the world. Because you cannot be anything else but the result of all prior states that preceded you. So it's almost like from the second that you were conceived into existence itself, the trajectories were set. So now there is something there that seems to be operating outside of reality itself, which, by the way, as I saw somebody here put, that's what I've also seen, which is that yes, even the God Almighty has no idea why everything exists. No clue. It's the one thing.
Are you familiar with the Gnostic texts by any chance?
Yeah. But these actually complicate things because they postulate a lot of back and forth of who's good, who's bad, and these are extremely incomplete pictures of the world. The truth is way more complex than any human can ever entertain. And all of these are like super rudimentary downloads of what the actual thing is. And I'm not claiming that I understand the full thing, of course. But what I am saying is that what I have been shown is that there is this reconfiguration that is happening. There's obviously beyond our ability to understand how it's actually going to unfold, but it is changing this picture. So in other words, it's almost like the Buddha nailed it, even though he didn't know, he didn't nail it in the ultimate way of things, but by nailing it this way, he gave the ultimate mind an idea. Does that make sense? It's almost like he goes like, oh, that's actually a better way. Can we all just achieve nirvana? Instead of basically having this division of that just, well, that's what happens because you acted this way or you acted that way. Well, how about we try and encourage the whole system to find an equilibrium. And then everybody would carry some of the burden of the darkness, or would integrate it in a way that is actually working and functional and beautiful, versus just one that insists that the light must win or the darkness must win, which of course is completely non-sustainable, not sustainable, because you will always have some flux that will always moving. But if you can somehow convince the whole picture to just come to an equilibrium, you would have an equitable state where everybody kind of sharing the responsibility and holding a balanced space. And under that kind of scenario, story, whatever you want to call it, it seems to me that under this picture, the definition of an actual evil is the knowledge that this is the case, and at the same time the refusal to participate in this rearrangement. So it's like, no, I'm going to keep what I have because I don't care. That is the definition of evil.
Yeah, for me, it's I'm a Gnostic. If I had to put a label on it, I wouldn't say I am, but if I had to pick a belief and just say that's what I believe in, I guess that's what I would say. And the biggest thing from them that I would say stands out more than anything is when they talk about how a different lesser God created the world and everything in it, but our spirits, our souls are not created by this demigod. Our souls are from the ultimate God.
Mm-hmm.
And that when you come here, this demigod that made the world wants you to worship materialism and anything. So the more you're obsessed with clothes, sex, I'm trying to be TikTok appropriate here.
Thank you.
Cars, whatever it is that you're so hyper fixated on, and you're basically worshiping his creation and moving away from the divine. So the less you can cut out food, sex, all these things that they teach in religions, right? You're supposed to fast. You're supposed to practice abstinence. The reason you're really, in my belief, supposed to do that is that you are removing your worship of the material world and getting more in touch with the divine soul.
Right.
Trying to awaken your soul and enlighten it.
I think this is a good, maybe a moment.
Like a Kundalini.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe this is a good moment to kind of remind what the Buddha actually, what the position was. The position was that everything you just said, that's the lowest level of the game. It's not even on the map of what we're talking about here, or at least what the Buddha was talking about. He was talking about attachment, period. So the physical there's no real significance whatsoever in terms of what you should not engage with in terms of attachment. It doesn't matter if it's physical or not physical. Attachment it's infinite. So you can be attached to just the bliss of being in the higher realms. You still have attachment. And that is still what keeps you in the karmic cycle. So according to the Buddha, the reason that the only insistence was, and I spoke about this a lot on this channel, so I know that for some people it's definitely, I'm just kind of repeating myself, but the Buddha's only insistence was that you have to get out of the house. So just to show you how high that goes, according to the scriptures, the Buddha was actually teaching across all levels, and he was teaching even in the highest realms. And according to the belief system, is because you're still in the karmic cycle, it might be very long, but it's not infinite. So basically, even if you're in one of the highest of realms, because the Buddhists do believe in like different levels of hell and different levels of heaven, even if you're in the highest levels of heavens and you are the ultimate being in that highest level of heaven, you're still in the karmic cycle, which means that you can live for, I don't know, Googleplex years, and you would be in infinite bliss for Googleplex years. But because in that time you burn so much good karma, you can fall to the lowest of hells and spend another many, many, many years there. So
I see what you're saying.
So you will always be in the karmic cycle. You're not out of the picture. And this is why the Buddha said the only thing you should ever care about is get out of the house, which means out of the karmic cycle. And nirvana is outside of all of that. So nirvana is not a place, or it is literally the dissolution of attachment completely. There's no more. You just, you don't reincarnate. You don't go to realms. You don't go anywhere. You're just outside. You're part of that please. You're part of that place that is truly unspeakable, which is like outside of existence itself, whatever that is. So that's the thing that I always hold in view when I'm kind of thinking about these things, because at least to me, it's clear that what I'm doing now, I'm still playing the form game. Like we're making sounds, we're in the physical, but even when, if people say, yeah, but we can ascend to the fifth dimension, sure, you're still going to be in the karmic cycle. It makes no difference. So you're just going to have whatever you are. Now your problems are going to be of the fifth dimensional kind. This is just like you can't. You know that book, wherever you go, there you are. You can't escape yourself. The only thing that should ever matter is your ability to just be, without caring whatsoever what it is. Because ultimately, the yin and the yang, neti, it's all the same thing. At the height of the suffering, it is the same exact feeling as the height of all bliss. There's no difference between them whatsoever. And only with that realization, you can be free. That's kind of like, for me, the bullseye, the mandala of that realization. So whatever we're here, it's almost like you can think of it as like universal entertainment. That's all we're doing. What is the real thing that is happening? The only honest answer anyone can ever give is, who knows, man? I mean, this is like truly. But the only thing that should matter is how we feel in the moment. If every time I leave the room, people go, oh, thank God, there might be something I want to be changing about my life, right? Same goes for the other side of it, right? If people just want you back in the room the second you left. Now, in the aggregate, especially if we believe we're infinite souls, some of that signature is being retained. So in the aggregate, you want to aim to be the latter, right? Because whatever it is, if you are existing in spaces that are infinite of any flavor, energy, resources, the only thing that matters is what kind of vibe you hold. That's it. Because it's the only thing that really, like, that's the only thing that influences anything else. All of the stuff that we measure value by here, through money, through sex, through like all the pleasure of the flesh, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that it's a very low level, short lived kind of moment, right? And ultimately, do you evolve through it? Because if you are, that's great. You can enjoy them, no problem. But if you are constantly demoting yourself in the kind of value that you bring to the ultimate picture, you might want to reassess, because it goes to infinity here and it goes to infinity here. But the truth is that you want to not really be dependent on what it is. Oh, it's good. Oh, it's bad. No, you should, like, the whole practice of all. There's a lot of different Buddhist. Yeah, all the Buddhist traditions are very vast, as I'm sure you know. The gamut of the full Buddhist practice is like very, very big, right? So there's a lot of different techniques. There's all kinds of sects, and they believe different things. And but there's one thing that is always the same for all of them. There's no exception. If you're a Buddhist, that thing never changes, which is your only goal. The actual only goal at the core of it is detachment. So it doesn't matter what happens. Don't push, don't pull. And that is the only superpower. Because if you think about it, if you can achieve that, you can be at the lowest of hells, and it just doesn't matter. It's all the same. Yeah. But I do appreciate you, brother. And
I knew you were going to go soon.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're familiar with Kundalini awakening? Have you ever experienced one?
I've experienced portions of it, and I've met quite a few people recently that have been talking about that. This is something that it would actually be interesting to explore. But yeah, I have beautiful wings for my wife. The dinner is ready, so I got to bounce off. But let me tell you, your energy is definitely let's say, on the right track. I really enjoy your company. I appreciate you coming and sharing your story. And
I appreciate you for having me, man.
yeah, so hopefully we can have more of that, and we can, if you come tomorrow, we can have that discussion of the Kundalini awakening and what people report about it.
Sure.
Sorry I didn't get to a lot of comments and questions today, guys, but I like having these moments as well. Thank you so much for everything. Love you all. If you want to follow, wait, your handle is just Jay?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, you can just follow Jay, the letter J, on TikTok, which was a great conversation, great vibe. Casey, who's the man, CAW_AHA. CAW_AHA. Casey, the man who's been doing our experiments live. Love you, brother. If you want to follow me,
Thank you, Danny.
thank you so much, brother. If you want to follow me across platforms, it would be Danny Goller. It's on TikTok and Instagram. Goller Danny, if you just reverse him on X. LaserX83, that's on Twitch, and Dango Thoughts on YouTube. DANGO Thoughts on YouTube. I really want to thank all the community members that are always here, always making this what it is. The people who are putting their hard, free time, hard-won money to help this project. Ebony and Chris, and Devin and Irv and David Carter and Laszlo. And man, this is dangerous when I'm doing this because I'm forgetting a lot of people, and I know this. It's just my memory. Please forgive me. Owl. Who else? Bradley. Sorry. This is Empathy. I mentioned, of course. Jessica, thank you so much. Simon, thank you so much for always bringing great vibes. Sofa King, guys, I know that I'm not mentioning everybody, but I love you all. Thank you so much for being here and doing this. And we're gonna keep going. Oh, do join the members program on YouTube, because we have a monthly Zoom call with everybody, and that's a lot of fun. You should join because one is coming soon. We have a weekly live for members only, aside from the daily lives, and early access to all my content and personal stuff from my life that will only exist on YouTube members. Please join YouTube members. It helps running this project full time. Love you guys. Peace and love. Ciao. See you tomorrow.